speaking of democracy, this story is kind of close to home, close to the motherland. My motherland specifically, not Marcel. Marcel's not Indian. I'm Indian. And well, I don't know. You know what? Maybe I shouldn't assume. Marcel, are you Indian? I just want to confirm if you are or aren't.
I have no idea. I am black, as they like to say. And beyond that, I genuinely do not know. I haven't done like the 23andMe, but that kind of goes into my whole I don't trust megacorps thing. So
Well, I for a fact am confirmed Indian. I've got the birth certificate to prove it. And um Twitter has been censoring um anti-Modi like comments on Twitter. And for those of you who don't know, Modi is the Prime Minister of India, and he's been the Prime Minister. I'm going to find this fact out real quick. How long has Modi been Prime Minister? Let's see. Since May of 2014. Wow. So that's almost 10 years. That's feel like the time is slowly coming to an end. I wonder, one second, I want to look something else up. How long are prime ministers in India? Prime minister terms in India. Oh, apparently they can serve 2 5-year per term. So never mind. He is cleanly legal, but also the whole Twitter debacle of him. Twitter is being accused of censorship in India, like Twitter's inhibiting the Indian government. It issued a notice to Twitter to remove people in the aftermath of an internet shutdown in Punjab during a search for a separatist leader. Twitter blocked 120 accounts, including Canadian politician Jagmeet Singh, the Canadian poet Rupi Kaur, several journalists, and it's essentially the Indian government has made it a norm to take draconian measures and crack down on dissent from Sikh and other minority communities. So it seems like a lot of stuff that's kind of happening in the US as well, maybe to a larger extent, maybe to a smaller extent. And I just think freedom of the press doesn't really exist at this point, because it's either you talk about the state and you support it, and if you don't, then you're in trouble. And that's fucking horrendous. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't want to comment too much about the Modi stuff specifically, just because I'm not that familiar with Indian politics. But I am familiar with Elon Musk. So I guess I can talk about that angle, because like when Elon bought Twitter, it was under the guise of like Twitter was censoring free speech, and
right there, free speech abolitionist.
Yes.
Or absolutist. Sorry, guys, I can't read.
It's fine. Yeah, but that's what he called himself, a free speech absolutist. Usually that just means they want to say the N-word, and misgender trans people. But, for a so-called free speech absolutist, he seems to love to crack down on free speech. And I mean, we saw him, not even just counting this censoring the Modi critics. Pretty early on in his tenure, he removed a bunch of left-wing journalists from Twitter as well. Granted, they did get reinstated, but that's something that's happened too. Recently, Twitter started to, what's the word I'm looking for? Shadow ban Substack links, to where like you couldn't like or retweet posts that has Substack links on it, and that's a whole bag of can of worms having to do with Matt Taibbi not being sufficiently complimentary. Damn English words not working for me. But not sufficient being deferential to Elon Musk. I just had to choose a different word. But like I think this kind of this shows the I guess the falseness with really idolize anyone, but especially idolizing billionaires, because ultimately billionaires can start or care about one thing, and whether or not that's Elon Musk or Bill Gates or I mean, you can name any. I mean, heck, I'll throw Oprah in there too. Ultimately, all billionaires care about one thing, and that's about making sure that they have a bigger yacht than the next guy. Um, and we shouldn't trust that billionaires are going to have our best interests at heart, because ultimately, what's best for us is never going to be what's best for them.
I mean, we literally live in completely different worlds. I mean, most don't have to worry about health insurance, while majority of Americans don't have health insurance, or they struggle to pay their health bills, or just don't get me started on healthcare thing. I just mean most Americans struggle to live paycheck to paycheck, while a billionaire probably does not have to worry about that. Mostly because they get a lot of funding from governments, and they can use stock options to help them buy stuff, which is what Elon Musk did, by the way, he leverages Tesla shares to buy Twitter. And we're going completely off the rails when we're supposed to be talking about India and the draconian measures that they've taken. But I just think it goes to show you that, like, you shouldn't expect things to really change if you are going to rely on these people that have completely different agendas than you. And it's absolutely ludicrous, and I keep saying it, but it is, guys, it is. And I'm upset. I know I'm yelling at this point just to like let my anger out. Do you have anything else you want to say about this topic, or are you ready to move on?
I think I'm ready to move on, but I would just say that, like, at the end of the day, like, and there's countless examples of this, but just because someone's made billions of dollars doesn't make them inherently smarter than anyone else. Me and you just kind of had a conversation about intelligence off camera. But like, there's more than one example of a billionaire thinking because they were smart and because they were rich, they knew better than people, and they leveraged their richness to change policy here in America. And that's kind of reason why billionaires shouldn't exist, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree with me or not, Sham, but when you're sorry.
I was just gonna say I'm indifferent to the fact that billionaires exist or not. It's more of the fact that they don't pay their fair share. And like the whole argument of like, yeah, they make jobs and they do all of these things. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's what being an entrepreneur is about, is creating jobs and doing all that. That's different from like you paying your fair share to help build schools and roads and all that stuff. So me, it's not necessarily the fact that billionaires should or shouldn't exist. If you're really adding that much value to society, go for it, I guess. But you should also be adding value in terms of like paying your taxes and paying your fair share, because that's kind of where I'm at with the whole billionaire argument. At this point in life, I unlike the rest of America, and I think Marcel is like this too, I'm willing to change my opinion if I hear facts that kind of change my perspective. And so I don't, yeah.
Yeah. I guess, like, I think we're kind of like on the same page, but also, like, I think I go a little bit farther in that in my critique of billionaires. Because like I guess there's like that one side of like, and I think that's how a lot of people look at it. Like, you can use all your money and do good, or you can just hog it and buy the biggest yacht, or go to space, but not even really go to space. Just kind of go really just like near like upper Earth atmosphere, in your penis shaped rocket. But like, there is like a history of billionaires like using like their power and their influence to change policy in this country, oftentimes for the detriment of ordinary people like you and myself. The example I usually go to is Bill Gates with education. I know I said I was kind of done with this topic and I keep going on, but that's kind of just part of the course with me. But
it is the course with him.
but like, so Bill Gates with education. So basically, if you're familiar with Common Core, that was a big push of Bill Gates. And basically, because he was rich, he said, I'm going to solve education in America and I'm going to use my money to leverage this. And so he, I don't know if he hired consultants or, whatever, however he came up with Common Core, but he came up with Common Core and he basically went to a bunch of schools and said, hey, I will give you a bunch of money, but you have to implement this. And the school said, sure, we'll implement this. And so without really talking to teachers or teacher unions, and like a bunch of schools across the country implement this stuff on the promise of having all this money, and it has resulted in worse outcomes for our students, our children. Not going to say they're dumber, but they're certainly not as high achieving as, that's not even a good way to phrase it, but I guess in my experience as a teacher, one good way I would describe this seeing this in effect is how Common Core approaches math. Like when I was a kid, we learned our times tables. Yeah, it's kind of just rote memorization, but I think it's something that a lot of us will point to being very useful for how to better understand math in the future. But with Common Core, it's less on memorizing your timetables and more about a lot of these little different, like, it's more focused on like tricks to solve math and a bigger focus on like using like calculators and tools and stuff like that, and in order to get math done. And what we've seen has been our kids just having not as good of an understanding on just like how math works. Despite that being the stated goal of Common Core, it's made our kids, I guess, less proficient in their studies and has put us further behind in the world than we already were. And it's not like America had the best education system in the world 20 years ago, but it's certainly not as good now as it was then.
And with that, I'm going to have to cut him off. We're moving on to the next topic because this man can go on, and I can too.